What screams I'm very insecure. It's a law that exists but widely misunderstood is the concept of entrapment. If the police put a bait vehicle in a high crime area, that is not entrapment. If the police are watching a bar known to overserve to see if there are impaired drivers at the end of the night, that is not entrapment. Entrapment only occurs when a gov agent suggests committing a crime that you were not otherwise going to commit. The case that really set the court precedent for this was wild. FBI agents were badgering this farmer to buy porn for months, and finally he was like, sure, whatever. Wham, jail time. I believe it was cleared, but damn, was that dirty. This actually happened to an old high school teacher of mine. He thought he was going on a date with a lady he met online. When they met up for the date, who happened to be an undercover officer, she was like, I'm not really interested in a date, but for $_ I'll do $_, to which he obliged. He was charged with soliciting a prostitute, but the charges were dropped, since he was only actually interested in the date and had no desire to solicit anything until the officer brought it up. An arrest isn't magically invalidated if the police don't read you your rights on the spot. There could be a whole thread of just misconceptions people have from watching cop TV. Miranda rights protect you from self-incrimination when being questioned by the police for a crime. It doesn't mean they have to Miranda you the second you get arrested. If you aren't questioned, then it doesn't apply. People also think it's illegal not to let them make a phone call after being arrested. My little brother seems to be under the impression that at 17 and a half, if he got caught selling weed, which is illegal in my state unless you have a license to sell and a med card to buy, that when he turns 18 his record would be expunged. He also thinks driving a motorcycle without a helmet or a license of any kind, not even his car permit, is okay because if he does get pulled open, he can just run away from the cops. Also that him blowing into his friend's breathalyzer thing tied to the car ignition so that person can drive drunk is perfectly fine because he's a better driver when he's drunk. Also for everyone saying no helmet not illegal, just shut the fuck up. It's federal law in the US that a plainclothes or undercover police officer has to identify themselves as law enforcement if asked. No, it's not the law, and they can tell you whatever the fuck they want. I'm reminded of that Breaking Bad cold open where Badger gets arrested for selling product to an undercover officer because of this exact made-up law lol. My father who is a lawyer, policemen cannot lie to you. This is false. They can and they do. Frazier vs. Cupp is the Supreme Court ruling that affirmed the legality of deceptive interrogation tactics in 1969. The ruling is still active. I heard you were smuggling animals. What are you, a cop? In California, it's not illegal to discuss your wages with your coworkers, despite what your boss might say. It's actually illegal nationally for a company to retaliate for discussing wages. They typically just make up some other bullshit reason to fire you instead. It's actually not illegal anywhere in the United States to discuss wages or form/join a union, contrary to what many employers may claim. I also strongly recommend you do both to protect yourself and your colleagues from being taken advantage of. People that think it's illegal to be videotaped in a public space. I saw someone on Nextdoor complaining about my reasonable right to privacy in a public place, when someone was shaming 20 people standing together waiting for takeout. Sorry, that's the opposite of how it works. Driving with interior overhead car lights on is not illegal. I had an experience with this. Got pulled over as a very new driver, 16, because my interior lights were on. The car and I were so new to each other I didn't know all of the controls and I had just left a bright parking lot. No laws broken, but the cop told me he stopped me for suspicion of DUI because it's an indicator of impaired driving. It's indicative of lack of attention. Your mom told you that was illegal when you were a kid, too, huh? No laws against driving barefoot. Mandatory edition in the US. In Germany, while appropriate footwear is not directly required, you can be found at fault if your choice of footwear or lack thereof leads to your inability to avert an accident. Saw this and immediately went to Google to disprove, but you're absolutely right. I've been told this my entire life and always thought it was dumb. The reasoning everyone always told me was because the vibrations from the pedals would make your foot fall asleep or go numb so you wouldn't have as much control, even though I know so many people who drive barefoot and have never heard one of them say that their foot fell asleep. Probate attorney here. I've had many people ask me when the reading of the will is going to take place. I explain to them that only happens in movies. But one of these days I'm going to have one, and hire a mysterious blonde wearing a veil to sit in the corner quietly. Then I'll tell everyone that she inherits everything. Provided, of course, that she must adopt the decedent's cute but troublemaking 6-year-old child no one knew about. Or she can spend the night in a haunted house. Her choice. There will now be a requirement for such a mysterious lady's presence at the reading of my will, Written into my will. Along with a handful of burly yet solemn fellows, dressed in stereotypical G-man attire, complete with sunglasses and earpieces. One will be Russian, or at least able to fake the accent consistently, and should only be curtly acknowledged by the others. Every one of them should be entirely vague about how they knew me except from business, and the men should all refuse to acknowledge the presence of the veiled woman, and feign terror if compelled to look at her. My dad spent his whole career doing probate and can't count how many people have inquired about the reading of the will. I believe on a couple of occasions he's actually staged them, because it was the only way to get the whole family to come sit down in a room and actually listen to what the fucking will says, and why not do it if he can bill the estate for the hours it takes him to clean up the conference room and then read a piece of paper at a bunch of morons? In the UK that it is illegal to drink under the age of 18. You can buy alcohol with a meal at 16, beer, wine, cider, and you are not breaking any laws if you give your child some alcohol in the privacy of your own home and they are over the age of 5. You can buy alcohol with a meal, but do restaurants have a final say as to whether or not they'll serve it? In the UK, it's not illegal to park on someone else's driveway. It's classified as trespassing, a civil offense, not criminal, which means the police can't do anything. This particularly surprises people as many think that they have exclusive rights to the parking outside their house as well. What recourse do you have? As a former lawyer, UK, I lost count of the amount of people that thought jaywalking was a crime. Unless it's a road that specifically states no pedestrians or a motorway, no such offense exists here. Too much American media, it technically is a crime in America, so people think it applies in other places. The one that is the most frustrating to me, even though it's not really a specific claim that a particular law exists, more a rule of evidence, is that's just hearsay. You have no evidence. Comes up all the time, in all kinds of contexts. Even lawyers love using it when it suits them, nothing but hearsay and speculation. Usually, what people mean when they say that is don't believe them. They're lying. Which, fair enough, but that's not what hearsay means. Lots of evidence is just a person talking. That's what a witness is. It's why testimony exists. It's not evidence just because it's a person talking. Hearsay just means that in most cases, you can't have person A say that person B said XYZ, in order to prove that XYZ actually is true. Hearsay, get it? I heard B say it. It just means your witness can only talk about things they actually know about. And, extremely importantly, it also doesn't count as hearsay when person B is actually the person on the other side of the case. Person A is totally allowed to say person B told me yes, I will commit the crime on Tuesday if person B is the defendant, who has been accused of committing the crime on Tuesday. You don't get to complain it's hearsay if you're the one who supposedly said the thing they heard.